And the NVIDIA deal, just one of the business developments coming out of President Trump's trip to the Middle East. The White House has announced hundreds of billions of dollars in deals in Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Joining us now on the new era of U.S. business diplomacy, Firas Maksad is Eurasia Group's managing director for the Middle East. It's been a little bit, has it been surprising to you that is it safe to call this a sea change in our relationships of the United States with the Middle East, Firas?
Yeah, it's good to be with you this morning. Absolutely. I do think this trillion-dollar tour that President Trump right now is on in the region is a sea change in the sense that we are approaching this part of the world with a very commercial-minded approach. We tend to think about the Middle East as a place that has tumultuous geopolitics, the conflict in Gaza, the issue over Iran's nuclear program, the history of Iraq and Afghanistan. And the president really here is putting the region on the radar of the global business community. This is a place that is capital rich, has a new crop of leaderships, whether it is in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, or the UAE, young leaders with national visions. And it's a great place for the United States to do business. And I think President Trump recognizes the opportunity and is very much pushing forward American businesses to take advantage of that.
I think Kelly was just a glimmer in her mother's eyes the last time two presidents from the United States and Syria encountered each other. Is that true?
Yeah, I can't remember. Well, I would
25. Yeah.
I do remember actually. It was the late Hafez al-Assad of Syria and President Clinton in 2000, right before the peace negotiations fell apart. So it's a sea change. Obviously, Syria, huge opportunity there with the collapse of the Assad regime, new leadership that has come to the forefront. Obviously, Syria is kind of the row house in the center of the neighborhood. If it's coming apart, if it's on fire, everybody else is going to be impacted. Israel to the south, Turkey, a NATO ally to the north, fragile Lebanon to its west. And so everybody wants to get Syria right and give it the opportunity. That said, it's not without a catch. Certainly the new folks in power in Syria have a jihadist past. That's how they came to power. They're hardened fighters. But the argument is to be pragmatic and that they would be moderating pretty quickly. They have been trying. And so here we see that President Trump has bought into that argument. And I think the eye here is to make sure that Iran isn't able to stage a comeback, take advantage of all the chaos that would unfold in Syria if, in fact, it does go sideways.
I'm just wondering, I mean, is it too much to hope for some type of, I don't know if I call it an Arab Spring, but could Syria show Iran the way to being more like a Western, I guess that's too much hope for a Western democracy, but at least where the Syrian people come into the 21st century and enjoy some of the benefits that I still think the Iranian people wish they had, but they don't have it yet.
Yeah, I think the vision put forward by President Trump in his speech in Saudi Arabia was key. I don't think, Joe, we're talking about, Jeffersonian democracy breaking out in the Middle East anytime soon. But what we are talking about is, effective leadership that can provide for the people, these national visions that I mentioned in these various Gulf countries. And President Trump kept referring to how in places like Saudi Arabia or the UAE, they're making the desert bloom. And they're taking those resources that they have, the oil revenues, the petrochemicals, the big investments in various key industries, AI was mentioned here today, and putting them to use for developing their economies and diversifying. While in Iran, we see what they're doing with their oil revenues. They're sponsoring militias all across the Middle East, trying to project power. It means no development for their people, chronic power shortages, water shortages. And I think that's the key here. If Syria can go down that path of focusing on providing for its people, I think it's a strong contrast for the Iranian people to see where the Arabs are going in the region versus where the Iranians have been.
I want to at least get two more questions here. I don't know how much time I have. But number one, Netanyahu and Israel, are they watching this in, I don't know what you'd call it. Is there trepidation? Or would, if Saudi Arabia were to sign on to the Abraham Accords, would that be something that Israel would say, okay, we understand it. There's a method to Trump kind of I know, has the relationship between Trump and Netanyahu and Israel changed in the last couple of months, Firas?
Great question. Listen, this is a president that really has two priorities when it comes to the Middle East region. One is trying to get to a deal of some sorts with Iran over their nuclear program. He keeps saying that this is the year where we either go to war over that nuclear program, but preferably we unlock a solution through diplomacy. And I think the coming 2 months will be crucial. The timeline that we have is up to June. This is kind of when we either go the route of sanctions and more maximum pressure, or we unlock at least an interim deal. Our view is that chances are 60% that we will actually get to some sort of interim deal and kick the can down the road in terms of diplomacy with Iran. But the other priority is normalization between Saudi Arabia, the big country in the region, and Israel to add on to the Abrahamic Accords. President Trump often feels that this is kind of his pathway to a potential Nobel Prize. The problem is that Bibi Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, for domestic political considerations, can't get himself to a workable ceasefire in Gaza that would then allow for a pathway towards normalization with Saudi Arabia. And so a great deal of frustration between the American president and the Israeli prime minister.
How much time have you spent, you don't wear pearls, but if you did wear pearls, clutching your pearls about the jet and the self-dealings for the Trump family or whatever the left or mainstream media is focused on this morning? Is that spent a lot of your time? Is it going to be a lasting, is that what we're going to remember about the entire trip?
Not at all. Not at all, Joe. Listen, I do think that perhaps the Qataris here wanted to come, bearing gifts for the American president, any American president, in fact. This is just the nature of international politics, certainly the way that, dealing in that part of the world is conducted. They wanted to show respect. But it's on the United States and our rules and regulations whether to accept that or not. So this is not something that's going to impact international diplomacy, let alone kind of commercial diplomacy that President Trump is keen on.